You're listening to a Rogue Agents episode rebroadcast that the Longbox Crusade crew made for the other podcast network where we do a little work on Her Majesty's Secret podcast. We encourage you to check out On Her Majesty's Secret podcast and its feed for new episodes and additional content. We hope you enjoy these older Rogue Agents episodes re-released here on the Longbox Crusade Network.
You're listening to Rogue Agents episode 24, featuring Ian Fleming's James Bond 007 Kill Chain, issue 1 from Dynamite Comics. And welcome to the 24th episode of the Rogue Agents podcast, a part of On Her Majesty's Secret podcast channel, brought to you by our fine Patreon sponsors and White Rocket Entertainment. I'm your host, Agent Delvin, codenamed Dark Web. Joining me as co-agents for this episode are, and they're about to tell me the most 007 thing that they've done since last episode. We will start with Jarrod Alberich. His codename is Death Probes. Sometimes yard sale artists.
Well, hello, Delvin. I'm glad you picked me first because it's very important the audience knows that I was the first person in our group to pick up Showcase 43.
Liar.
Hey, you wait your turn.
That's on fire. Liar.
I have, since last recording, I've acquired DC Showcase number 43, which is the first appearance of James Bond in American comics. I did that all on my own without any influence from anyone else. Any other stories you might hear later on are Go on mute, Alan. They're all lies and propaganda, I tell you.
I've known you for a while, Jarrod, couple decades now, going on decade number 3, and something tells me you're not quite telling the truth, but but congratulations on your find. That is an awesome thing. I'm glad it is in your possession. I will give you that. And you know what? Let's get to the bottom of this. There's somebody who is protesting quite loudly. It's Agent Alan. We call him affectionately Tex. Welcome back, Tex, and tell us, before you refute anything Jarrod has to say, tell us what is the most 007 thing that you have done since last episode.
Well, ignoring the fact that he's telling packs of lies over there, actually, I did a return to Los Angeles to our favorite automotive museum just a couple of weeks ago.
Ooh.
For the Ian Fleming Foundation 30th Anniversary Gala, which was an evening of Bond entertainment held at the Peterson Automotive Museum at the Bond in Motion exhibit. There was a few more people than when we were there last. There was like 200 people, all the folks from the Ian Fleming Foundation, the founders and the board members, and a whole bunch of, as many of the volunteers that could make it, but it was actually also a star-studded Bond gala. It was very cool. We got to chat with and meet several of the Bond girls who were there. Let me just see if I can do a quick rundown as to who was there. There was Luciana Paluzzi from Thunderball, Fiona Volpe, and she is just as feisty and fun as you would think she is. Laura Hendry from Live and Let Die. Maud Adams, who we'd met before from The Man with the Golden Gun and Not So Busy. She's either really good at faking it or she intimated that she remembered who I was, so I think she was being very polite.
No, take it.
Well, I was going to take it, yeah.
Yes.
And Bruce Glover, I can never remember if he was Mr. Wint or Mr. Kidd, anyway, from Diamonds Are Forever. Anthony Stark, the accountant guy from License to Kill, was also there. Oh. And there was a member of the Broccoli family, a member of the Fleming family, lots of behind-the-scene guys, quite a few other Bond podcasters and video folks, and our good friend Raymond Benson. I also got to meet Stephen J. Rubin, who did the Bond movie encyclopedias, John Cork, who does all the extras, all the documentaries on the DVDs. I found out later John Burlingame was there, Jarrod, who we reference constantly on the music show, but I didn't know he was there, didn't get to meet him, unfortunately. But yeah, it was a very cool evening. Really cool.
2 follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Number 1, how many of these people did you get voice drops from for the podcast?
Zero, because I wasn't going to be that irritating like several other podcasters who were there who were sticking microphones under everybody's nose. Plus, I'd had several Vespers by that point. There was an open bar with Vespers. I mean, I'm sorry.
So instead of getting voice drops, Alan was just over there, just probably.
Jill and I were just chatting with whoever sort of came,
singing James Bond theme song.
yeah. We just had a great evening. Yeah.
All right. Follow-up question 2. When last we went, you and I and Delvin, Van, and Jason were there, and Kathy. We left about half a pizza and a bunch of wings in our fridge there at the hotel. Were you able to go get those?
I actually stayed at the same hotel. Would you believe?
So yes or no on the pizza?
No, didn't. But we did go back to the pizza joint. Jill and I did go to the pizza joint.
It's a good joint.
Yeah, that was a good weekend. And the night before the gala, we went to the Hollywood Bowl to see Duran Duran. And of course, the highlight of the evening was A View to a Kill. So it's very cool. So that was a good weekend. But going back to the other thing, Delvin, yes, a certain person.
Hoping we glossed past that.
I didn't think he wanted to forget.
No. At Dragon Con, I found a certain comic book that I'd been looking for like 20 years that might say Dr. No on the top of it, and was DC Showcase 43, which I saw tucked away on a booth at the end of the first day. Went back to the hotel, did a bit of research, went back the following day to pick it up, and there was a blank space where it had been, and I was panicking. And then I talked to the person, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we take all the key books down at the end of the night and put them back up, but we don't take any notice of where they are, so they could be in a completely different place." So they still had it. So I got a very nice copy of Showcase number 43, which I then made the mistake of showing to a certain somebody, who then decided to go on eBay and find his own copy, the little copycat. So.
I still see that Jarrod is very proud, and I just want to.
I should be.
I just want to note very quickly that we did not get an invite to the gala.
Yeah, I know.
Probably for the best. You know, I probably would have shown up in boots and ruined your black tie affair. Any event, we have forgotten about Agent Pat.
Yeah, sorry, Pat. I sort of monopolized things there. So.
I don't know if he's going to have the same thunder as you are, but we, of course, are just as glad to have him. Welcome, Agent Christatos. Please tell us the most Bond-like thing that you have done since last episode.
Well, since my other agents have gotten certain things, I myself was envious and wanted to get something as well, too. So last time when we were at Heroes Con, I was able to find a copy of Dr. Maybe. And so...
That's even rarer. That's very good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was able to apprehend that, and I'll have it under lock and key, and maybe we'll see if that'll make the other agents envious of me as well.
That's possible. I mean, I'm envious of you because you clearly won Rookie Agents and I did not. So I mean, it's very, you're right. So it's possible that Alan and Jarrod could be envious of you.
I don't like to say that a lot, Delvin. So, but I'm glad that you finally are able to admit that.
It's true. I know it takes a humble man to not mention it like you haven't. So
no, I don't. In fact, I was just listening to an episode of Rookie Agents before, and it was, hopefully you got a little bit better at your transportation.
My what now?
Never mind. Okay. It's okay, Delvin. I'm the winner. Don't worry about it. Okay,
that's all right. You are the winner, and Jarrod's the winner, and Alan's the winner. Oh, should I say something about the most Bond? Like, I haven't done anything Bond. Like, I sitting there thinking, I don't know. I don't think Bond's ever been to a rock festival, right? That's never been in any movie.
I've watched some people sing.
There's the opera. Yeah. He's gone to an opera. That's true. He's had a ghetto blaster. That's
watched Cara play the cello.
Yeah. I mean, so that would be the closest thing that I did. I mean, I had to brave intense heat. I had to brave rain. I had to brave bunches of raving lunatic fans of various forms of rock music.
Would that mean then possibly you've seen some ladies fight each other?
No, I was not that fortunate to see anyone fighting each other, which was actually a good thing. Out of 4 days, I saw 0 fights. So I was glad for that. It was a peaceful, loving festival. So, I mean, that was a good thing. So, yeah, I've talked about myself. I've talked about Pat being the winner. I've talked about Alan and his grand weekend. I talked about Jarrod and his awesome comic book. So... the episode is the 24th of our ongoing series on this channel called MI6 Rogue Agents, where we traverse the 007 universe. That can mean books. That can mean music. That can mean video games. And in my case, it usually means a Dynamite comic book. But hey, what can we say? Essentially, any medium that connects to the Bond franchise that we love so much here on Her Majesty's Secret podcast. And I have one addition before we get started. I couldn't help this. I like adding a little bit of extra thing for, our seasoned agents. This issue, this comic book that I brought reminded me of You Only Live Twice for reasons that are gonna most likely be revealed. But I wanted to know, is there a Bond film theme that you would like to see repeated? So I'm going to start with, let's see, I got a couple of thinking faces because no one read ahead on the script. This is good. Let's see who's ready. Jarrod, I'm going to go with him. Jarrod, is there any Bond thing? And I'm going to possibly handicap you because I know that you and Agent Weasel Skull, who's not here this time, by the way, we miss you, Jason. You have often said that you want Bond to go back to just having a simple mission. I do get that and respect that and know that that is a fervent wish of yours. But is there anything else that you like to see repeated? And also, I bought you more time.
Ironically, I was about to say, I want to see Bond go rogue. That's what, that's what I would do. That was going to be my smart comment. But no, I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, and this is fairly specific, but I would like to see Commander Bond in uniform again. It's been a long time.
You swine.
I also have Dr. No showcased. I feel like I probably stole Alan's, but yeah, that's one thing that I've been missing. Maybe Alan can talk about something musical themed that hasn't been around in a while that would be cool. I'll leave that for him if he's needing a topic.
Well, I was going to say I want to see Bond back in uniform, but like he does, somebody just stole that idea. So I will pick up on your very unsubtle hint. Yes, can we have the actual John Barry 007 theme back, please? We haven't had it since Moonraker.
Oh, wow. And that attention to detail, of course, Alan, is why you're here. Pat, is there anything that you would like to see repeated in the Bond universe?
I think in the story-wise, I would want to repeat possibly Thunderball in the story-wise. A more updated, that kind of a story would be kind of neat to see.
Let me tell you about a movie called Never Say Never Again.
True. Well, yeah, I guess.
But that's not bad though, Pat, because the story's still relevant and it could be updated with modern tech. And it'd be neat just to see a third go at it, basically. Because we've been reading but listening to the audio drama, right? And so I think those have made me kind of see things in a different way that I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
The stories.
We were absolutely in agreement about that when it came to the Moonraker one, because hearing the plot of that, it's like, why wasn't this the Moonraker movie? And I was one of the people, I enjoyed it because I felt that it was Roger Moore Bond. But still, if they were to change the name of it, give it some other name, but use that radio drama as it, that billion, especially with Henry Cavill as Bond. But you know what? We're not going to get into that.
What about you, Delvin?
What theme would I like to see?
I'm going to guess Felix Leiter.
You know what? I'm glad that you actually mentioned Felix Leiter. I think I've mentioned this before, but I would love if they explored the Bond universe more. There could be a Felix Leiter movie, and it could be fantastic. Felix Leiter doing some CIA stuff. They couldn't make that cool. Isn't that a ready-made story? And of course, and heck, if you wanted to give Bond a nod, have Bond, just kind of come in and just, dip his head, and tip his cap and be on his way. But a Bond movie would be good. A Moneypenny movie would be fantastic. Very much like the Dynamite comic book universe has explored. They could put that on a silver screen, and I think they can make a lot of money.
Or even a TV series. You could call it James Bond, The Lighter Side.
Ooh. I dig
short
it. But
stories. There you go, Alan. Start making some short stories of Felix Leiter. There you go.
You're getting dangerously close to liable territory, Pat. I just want to warn you. All right. Thank y'all for that. Now let's get to our rogue subject for this episode. We're talking about James Bond 007 Kill Chain, issue 1 from Dynamite Comics. The book title is Kill Chain, publisher Dynamite Comics. It was published in July 2017. The writer was Andy Diggle. The artist is Luca Casalanguida, and yes, I did practice that name beforehand. The colorist was Chris Blythe. Letterer Simon Boland. Editors were Joseph Rybrandt and Anthony Marquez. The cost was $3.99, and there were 3 covers. Cover A was by Greg Smallwood. Cover B was by Juan Doe. And cover C was by Luca Casalanguida. And here's a very quick plot description and a thank you to Dynamite.com for providing it for me. When a counter-espionage operation in Rotterdam goes catastrophically wrong, James Bond finds himself in the crosshairs of a plot to smash NATO. Someone is assassinating Allied agents, and 007 is the next target in the kill chain. Having kept the peace for decades, the old alliance is collapsing, hitting MI6 against its former ally, the CIA. Dynamite Entertainment proudly presents the plot of the return of James Bond's oldest and deadliest foe, Smersh. So, going around the table, is this a first read or reread for the group? And we will start with Alan.
This would be a 4th read, I think, for me, because when the Bond comics come out, I read them digitally first, and then I get hardcover collections.
Nice.
Obviously, when I write up the notes for the Bond Lexicon website update, I went through it again, so that would be the 3rd read-through, so doing it for this show would be the 4th read-through.
Fantastic. Pat, is this a first read for you?
So, Alan, this would have been 4th Your Eyes Only.
Oh, you were on fire tonight, Pat.
Oh, Pat.
Oh, stop, Pat. Stop. Oh, Delvin, it is a first read for me.
Fantastic. It is a first read for me also. And just as a very quick story, I picked this up at the Minicon in Charlotte. I was flipping through, just looking through some comic books, not necessarily looking for anything to buy. And sure enough, Kill Chain hit my eye. And I'm like, oh, was this a miniseries? Do they have all of them? And it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hey, I got something to discuss for Rogue Agents. So that's me. First read for me, and finishing it up with Jarrod.
A second read for me. I got it when it was new in the individual issue, and then I picked up the hardcover, and when I pulled it off to read for this episode, it was very pristine, and it was like, crack. As I opened it, I was like, oh, I've never actually cracked this one open. So first read from the hardcover, but second read overall.
Nice. I definitely wish I would have known about the hardcover because, you know, I bought the James Bond Moneypenny hardcover, and I enjoy having it. So I might get the hardcover, but I have all 6 issues, and we will be covering them on Rogue Agents.
Last I checked, they're very affordable. I was snagging them on Amazon, I think, for $14.99 per hardcover. Their cover price is $24.99, so they're pretty affordable. I'm pretty sure I bought mine right before Alan bought his, by the way, just as a side note.
Undoubtedly, because you always do. I just follow your lead all the time, Jarrod.
We are going to have to keep these two gentlemen separated. I just know it. All right. We have some experienced readers. We have some inexperienced readers. Let's start with an inexperienced reader, and we're going to talk some highs and lows now. Pat, give me a high or low about Kill Chain issue 1.
Delvin, I don't appreciate you letting everybody know that I can't read that well. You know, that's one of my problems.
No. Inexperienced as in like you are inexperienced to just this issue, not.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It's
right,
okay.
All right, well,
yeah.
I'll back down now. I'll back down, just because I won, I'll let that slide.
I appreciate that.
This was an interesting read for me as well. Being an inexperienced reader to the Bond comics, I found it very interesting. I thought it was going to be a little bit longer, but it was a quick read, but a very interesting read story-wise. It got you into the action right away with what was happening between him and, is it Rika or... I'm very, me, I'm bad with names.
It's Rika.
Rika, okay. And to understand what was happening between the two agents, I guess. I couldn't figure out where she was from. Was she like on the Russian side or the?
I think she's MI6. They were talking about possibly promoting her to 00.
Yeah, she was
that's
an MI6 agent in training. Yeah.
Okay, that's where I was kind of getting a little bit confused as what her association was to who. Did Bond actually shoot her, or was she shot by the guy?
He shot her.
He shot her. They mentioned it later on that
They do, but I wasn't sure if it was kind of staged or did she think it was staged too, or because she was kind of surprised when she came to, right?
Yep, she was surprised when she came to. It was her Kevlar that saved her. It did hit the Kevlar and penetrated it, but it did not go through her body, so it saved her life. But she did think that between that and the impact that she wasn't going to make it. She thought she had died, but she had not.
Okay, well, that answers some questions because I was kind of a little bit confused, but I was still following along on where they were going with this. Definitely interesting story. I want to read more. I would assume you're probably going to do it throughout this, so I'm really looking forward to the rest of it. The artwork was very good, along with just the panels in it as well, how it helped tell the story. And I really always like that. And I can see that when I'm reading through because it helps just tell the story so much better.
Well, nice. Thank you for that, Pat. Let's go to Alan. Alan, do you have any highs or lows to discuss?
Oh, I have lots of highs with this one. This is how a contemporary Bond movie should start. This was like a storyboard for a perfect modern James Bond movie.
Would agree.
And I particularly like the opening sequence where you got the balance of the two Russian agents forming a weapon with the two rocks, talking about two blunt instruments and cracking them together to create the axe. And then you've got the two blunt instruments of the MI6 agents banging together to create a weapon, and that weapon is Rika. Yeah, I just thought the way the storytelling, the whole thing was balanced. Just to pick up Pat's point, the artwork, the layout, it was very cinematic, but worked extremely well on the page. Andy Diggle's my favorite contemporary Bond writer, the two series he's done for Dynamite, my two favorite Dynamite series. And the artwork was great. The coloring was great. It just all came together. This is when people say you can't do a modern James Bond story. I'm like, go read the Dynamite comics. And if you're only going to show them one, I'd show them this opening sequence because this is how a Bond movie should open. And I'll shut up now because I'll keep going waffling on about how awesome this is.
The one thing that I want to add to that is that's one of the reasons that me being one of the least experienced people here when it comes to the Bond universe and the Bond comic book universe, I have really liked the Dynamite comic books because they have maintained a certain level of quality that, there's just a feel of it that you can appreciate. I've now read about Felix Leiter. I've read Moneypenny. And this story is exclusively about James Bond, and all of them just have that very good movie quality feel to it. And the artwork has been hyper realistic, but simple. Like, the one that always comes to my head is Ibrahim Mustafa. Like, his artwork was just, oh my God, it's so good. But Luca here, I'm assuming Mr. Casalanguida, that the artwork was fantastic throughout the entire book, and it just put you right in the mood of what was going on. It was really good artwork. And I'm going to pass it to Jarrod so he can continue with praise or perhaps critique.
Not going to be a lot of critique here. The only one that I had was what Pat already picked out. I had to double, triple check it who shot Rika.
Me too. I had to go back and look at it at the same time.
Now you guys say it, you made me feel like a fool.
Well, that's part of it, Pat.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about Luca Casalanguida. His name is Luca. I'm fairly certain he lives
on the second floor.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the benefits to having the hardcover is in the back, they have the actual script of the issue, and they have the black and white artwork page by page to go along with it. And Pat, your instincts were right. You said it was a quick read. Most comics are 22 pages. This one was 20. It was a little bit shorter, and it was crisp paced. And Diggle managed to get a fair amount of storytelling information in there with the fast paced action going on. But back to the artwork, the black and whites are phenomenal. It's Casalanguida. Cat is definitely really good at just black and white. He's a really good, I would say, noir artist, bringing shadow and shade. And then Alan touched on it. The colorist, Chris Blythe, a lot of this art, even though the black and whites are gorgeous, is really carried by the color. There's a lot of shape definitions and things like that done with the color. And wow, Blythe did an amazing job. So this art team, coupled with this writer, just like Alan said, my other favorite from this series that Dynamite has done has been Hammerhead, and it's the same group. Hammerhead and Killchain, outstanding. What was great about me not having read this in a long time, since the floppy version, the single issue came out years ago. I want to say this was 2017, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it was 2017, Jarrod.
All right. Yeah, 5 years. So I've kind of forgotten a lot of details, and it just, I was reinvigorated with how cool it was for a dyed-to-the-wool Bond fan like me to get that last page and see Schmidt spiing them. And just like, oh my gosh, it's back, Death to Spies. And, that has serious ties to The Living Daylights, especially, which is, high on my list of things. So, yeah, just a lot of energy in the book, and then end it with that punch for the old school Bond fans. I'm sure new school Bond fans were like, this is interesting. And old school Bond fans were like, what? So, well done all around.
And once again, if you have this property like Dynamite Comics does, that's how you have to do it, right? You have to appeal to the old people. You cannot insult old school Bond fans on this. And, I don't know, have Bond, Dick singing a show tune or something like that. It's like, wait, well, maybe Roger Moore Bond would have sang a show tune. but you know what I'm saying? You've got to, and then those nods to the old school Bond, where a new school person can pick this up and say, hey, this is a cool story. And an old school Bond fan can pick it up and just kind of just laugh to themselves like, oh, these sons of bitches, they did it. That's a really cool thing to have. I'm going to pass it back to Pat again for a second round.
You mentioned it a couple of times, Dynamite taking on the licensing of this and the quality that is coming out on these things. Do you guys think that it is, definitely the Fleming rules or things that they make sure that is getting done so they don't really taint the line, the product at all, to make sure that it's at least at some sort of a caliber for them?
From the couple of conversations I've had with folks who've written for it, and particularly Van Jensen when he did the Fleming adaptations, they keep a watching eye on stuff. They will let them know when they've gone too far, but they let them try stuff. They let them do stuff as long as they don't sort of step over that ill-defined line type thing. It's not like other licenses where they're sort of, which some of the ones I've worked on, where they're sort of, questioning everything. They'll do stuff like, oh, well, we don't think Bond would do that, but generally giving them pretty much free license. The publications folks seem to be doing that. They've been doing it with the novels. They've just launched this new series of novels that Bond isn't even in, which are set in the contemporary world. And then they've been doing the Horowitz ones, which are set in the 60s and stuff. So they seem a lot more flexible with what they'll do with the franchise than maybe the movie people have traditionally been. I think that's part of it. And I also think it's part of Dynamite have actually gone out and found people in the comics community who are real Bond fans, like Andy Diggle, like Ibrahim Mustafa, people who've got fresh voices who want to tell Bond stories. When they started off, I didn't like the fact that they were doing like these continuous 6-issue miniseries. I was like, just do a continuous series. But actually, over the years, I've come to like it because it gives each one a fresh character, and you've got all these different creative teams trying it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Could this have been, a long-going series of James Bond? But I do like these short mini stories that they have in these, even the one-offs that we've read here and there. Definitely keeps me interested in Bond and, and the franchise. I really enjoy it. And I really like that they are allowing, as you said, Alan, those creative teams to kind of bring some additional things to the Bond universe in a loving and respectful way, I guess is the way I'm reading these things. I see some, like you said, they love it and they respect it, that they want to make sure that they bring their A game to this.
At first, I'm sure that relationship has to be very tentative. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. And then somebody like Mr. Diggle comes out and drops a story like that. And if you're the person safeguarding the Bond, that you read one or two of these stories, you kind of have it, okay, I'm going to relax a little bit. This dude loves this stuff. He knows what he's doing. He has watched these movies. And when that happens, Mr. Diggle feels like, okay, yep, I've proven this. And then he can take the stories anywhere he wants to at that point. And there's just a good relationship going on, I would imagine. I don't know this clearly, but that's what I would imagine. Alan, do you have more comments?
The other thing I really liked about this one is actually setting up the mystery a bit. Is like, does Bond realize that he's been duped at the beginning? Like in the pre-title sequence, he takes the files out of the safe, and then she's like, "Hi, he took the bait." It's like, well, did he know? Was it a double cross type stuff? And then you get the mystery later on as to who's working for who. Then, as Jarrod said, the big Smersh reveal at the end. So, spoilers, by the way. I really did like, as Jarrod said, Andy Diggle is really good at really setting out the story hooks very early on, but doing it in a way that's very organic to the storytelling and the way that it all unfolds for the reader. So it's a really good example of how to write a good first issue of a comic book series.
Fantastic. Jarrod, wrap us up, please, sir.
Will do. I want to talk about something very specific and then something very general. So for very specific, I want to pick a really cool page of not only art, but storytelling. It would be right after the mission goes sour. Bond chases the shooter to the roof. The shooter commits suicide. And then Bond is contemplating this terrible, terrible day he's had down at a bar. And the sexy woman comes over, throws herself at him. And he's like, no. And he just goes up to his room, and there's a really great, very noir, shadowy drawing of him sitting there with his bottle of booze, which looks to be now empty, and him being very contemplative. So I thought that was just really cool, a little out-of-the-box storytelling, just a really good way for Diggle to show just how much this is affecting James, because he's very out of character. He makes a decision we don't normally see him make. A lot of times he would hide from his pain in the arms of a woman, but in this time he's like, nah, today ain't the day. And I thought that was pretty interesting and good storytelling. So that's my very specific moment I wanted to focus on. Now, for my very general thing, I may want to bring Alan in here since he literally wrote the book on James Bond and comics. So earlier in the episode, we talked a lot about Showcase 43. I got Showcase 43 right before Alan did. And it's the first Bond in American comics, and it's at DC. And I've heard, and this is where I need Alan to weigh in on this, I've heard that this comic gave DC the rights to Bond for maybe up to 10 years. I'll let you weigh in on that in a second, Alan. I just want to point out that it gave them some rights to Bond in comics that they did nothing with. And then when Dynamite got it, it was rapid fire, one great story after another. There's no way they were going to fumble this ball that DC didn't even know they had. Because it's 1963, I think this comic came out. Anyway, your thoughts on that, Alan, and the rights that were around Dr. No and DC, if you remember all that. I know you've written and covered a lot.
No, I can recommend a book that really goes into detail. You're basically right that they tried Bond out with Dr. No in a copy of Showcase number 43, which actually went on sale in the US before the movie came out and actually disappeared from the newsstands before the movie came out. So it didn't sell because nobody knew and it doesn't say James Bond on there. It just says Dr. No. It's not a picture of Sean Connery. It just says in very small letters at the bottom, now a major motion picture or something like that. Yeah, so it bombed basically, and DC had the license to do Bond all the way through the height of Bond mania, right the way up until sort of the middle of the Roger Moore run. I do know there was at least a couple of attempts by people at DC who put proposals together, including some with some great artwork. One was put together by the writer Carrie Bates with art by the artist Jim Aparo. The art is sumptuous. It's wonderful. And it got turned down because they just looked at the sales figures for Showcase 43 and said, well, Bond comics don't work. There's no sales for it. So they just sat on it until the license expired, and then Marvel picked it up, and then it went through all various other permutations before it eventually ended up at Dynamite. As detailed in a book called James Bond, The History of the Illustrated 007, available at Amazon.com. End of plug.
I knew he would know.
Checks in the mail, Joe.
Yes. It's just an interesting, I know I'm going way back in history, but so DC basically does one thing, has the rights forever, does nothing else. Marvel picks it up and does really nothing more than a few adaptations. And then eventually it lands at Dynamite, and they're like, we are not squandering this license the way it has been squandered in the past. They went full attack. They hired the right people. You get things like Kill Chain, Hammerhead, Felix Leiter, Solstice. These are all books we've read and have adored. So I'm just going to glow up Dynamite and them not fumbling that ball. And I will leave it at that. I'll pull a Jason and say, I will leave it at that.
Nice. Good recommendation for that book. Jarrod, I believe you wrote that book, right?
Yes, absolutely. Under my nom de plume, Alan Juan Porter.
Nice. Just more fuel to the fire. Like I cannot wait till you guys are in the room together again. All right. So we will move on. Excellent discussion, by the way, gentlemen. Thank you very much. And I pulled fun facts from James Bond Literary Wikia and found out that SMERSH is broken down into 5 departments. Do any of you experts know the 5 departments of SMERSH?
Yeah, I believe it's humor, heart, spectacle, art,
and enthusiasm.
And then
That's that. No, good guess, Pat, and hilarious, but no. Alan is bringing out the book that he created to find this out, and so he can check me on this. But from James Bond Literary Wikia, SMERSH is broken down into 5 departments. Department 1 is in charge of counterintelligence among Soviet organizations at home and abroad. Department 2, operations, including executions. Department 3, administration and finance. Could you imagine? Could you?
The number crunchers at SMERSH.
hey, someone's got to do it, you know.
I'm sure these numbers are perfect.
the Gary Moneypennies of SMERSH work in that department.
Yes.
So that's number 3. Number 4, Department 4 is investigations and legal work personnel. See, also, you could have the office version with SMERSH. It might be very endearing. And Department 5, prosecutions, the section which passes final judgment on all victims. Alan gives me the thumbs up on it. Yeah, I pulled that from Wiki, and I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if the senior agents knew that SMERSH had those departments. I don't know if it was ever mentioned in any of the movies or anything, but
do you know what the actual source of that is, though, where it's actually is mentioned in the Bond universe? For it. It's actually in the first novel, Casino Royale, is where Fleming lays that out. And I am hurt to the quick that you went on a online website to look that up when there's a certain book.
Oh, here we go again.
That Jarrod
book this time, though, folks.
That Jarrod wrote, apparently.
Yes, this is my second major book.
That's what people who lose Bond trivia do. Let me tell you.
Here we go. We got infighting within the infighting on this episode.
That's what makes this podcast so special, Jarrod. Now, let's rate this whole thing. As a reminder of the rating system, 7 martinis means that you loved it. It shook your martini. 6, excellent. 5, very good. 4, good. 3, just okay. 2, not so good. And 1, you hated it. Stirred your martini. Ugh, who would even want a martini? So you know what? I don't think we're going to have to worry about anybody having a stirred martini on this one, gauging how the room is going. But let's start with Jarrod, and he will give us his rating.
I'm torn, sir. Torn, I say. I think I will reserve the 7 for my favorite Dynamite Comics arc, which was Hammerhead. And I will give this one a very solid 6. I reserve the right to change my mind on the story arc overall if after we get through reading all of it. It might tickle my tummy feathers quite a bit if I can mix podcast metaphors. For now, I will say issue number 1 gets a very solid 6 from me.
Nice. Let's go to Alan.
I had, copying Jarrod again, I had the same initial thought that Hammerhead is clearly my all-time favorite one. Should I keep 7 just for the one that I know is the favorite? But if we are just judging this just on the first issue, I think this is actually a perfect opening issue for a Bond miniseries. So I'm going to give it the full 7.
I like that.
Fantastic, Alan. Pat, what would you give it, sir?
Well, I am going to agree with my buddy Alan. Because we think alike, He's a great guy, and you should really go check his book out. But yeah, I agree with Alan. It is a perfect book. Art, characters, and storytelling just weave together in a simple way. I want to read more of it, but I have to wait.
Yeah, you're going to have to wait a while. But, it is coming. We will be doing Kill Chain 2 when my turn comes around. Fret not. And I am going to agree with Jarrod. I'm going to give it a 6. I'm always a little bit reserved, but I do want to say it was fantastic. And it's always good, that first issue, that first act, that opening act, that leaves you wanting more. And I definitely do, because it's like, okay, yeah, Smersh. I have heard of Smersh. Of course, I'm not that new to the Bond universe that I have not heard of Smersh. It's interesting to see how the Russian threat is going to come and plague MI6 and plague specifically James Bond's life, and particularly Rika, because she wants to be the one that ends Bond's life now because she has a personal vendetta against him. So a lot of fantastic storylines that are going on, and we're going to eventually get to all of them. So well spoken, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. And that's the show. As a reminder to our audience, if you'd like to be a part of the show, you can send us your questions, comments, or trivia challenges to ohmspod@outlook.com or over on our Twitter page @ohmspod. If you like, you could even use the email, as a reminder, that's ohmspod@outlook.com, to send us an audio recording of your question or comment, and we may even play it on the show. Please try to keep your audio file to just around 30 seconds or less. And we'd love to hear from you and make you a part of the show. Also, if you're an iTunes listener, we greatly appreciate it if you left a review for the show. That will help raise the show's profile to attract more of the 007 family to this program. As a reward for leaving a review, we will read your entire review on an upcoming episode of MI6 Rogue Agents. I want to thank everybody for joining me on the episode. Alan, Jarrod, and Pat, thank you very much. And before we go, let's find out where the listeners can find us on the internet. Alan.
You can find me on Twitter @BondLexicon and on Instagram @JamesBondLexicon, and of course the JamesBondLexicon.online website, where you can do all your Bond research, Delvin, which is the companion site to the book that Delvin clearly has not read, the James Bond Lexicon, which you can get on Amazon. And thanks to everybody who has read the book, Delvin, and left us a review. It's really appreciated, or a rating. Thanks to those who've done that.
I think he's a little pissed about the note. Pat, your turn. Where can you be found?
Well, Delvin, I'm glad you asked. You can find me on the Twitter @Christatos01.
Jarrod?
I am @YardSaleArtist. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram is all @YardSaleArtist. You can check out my artwares, which do include some James Bond artwork at www.theyardsaleartist.com. I have read the James Bond Lexicon cover to cover. The narrative story arc did not hold together at all. And I'm mocking someone that actually left a review on Alan's book, thinking that it was like an actual work of fiction and not a lexicon, like it says on the cover. So they were like, this story didn't hold. It's like, it's not a story. It was pretty hilarious.
I lost it somewhere around the middle. Like, I mean, who's the protagonist? I don't get it.
It seemed like a random series of facts.
And one more random fact, you can find me on Twitter @DEE_RAY1977. Thank you for listening, and we hope you've enjoyed this episode of MI6 Rogue Agents. If you've enjoyed this crew and want to hear more from them, but in the realm of comic books, please check out the Longbox Crusade. Pat, where can that be found?
Well, Delvin, I'm glad you asked. You can find the Longbox Crusade at www.longboxcrusade.com. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and YouTube, all at Longbox Crusade. Back to you, Delvin.
Thanks to the fellas for taking on yet another dangerous mission. Thank you to the listeners who have tuned in. If you'd like to leave a question or comment on this or any other episodes, feel free to contact the show on Twitter @OHMSPOD or email us at ohmspod@outlook.com. We hope to hear from you soon. The next episode of MI6 Rogue Agents will feature Jason's Choice. But on Her Majesty's Secret Podcast, we'll return.
This episode features the James Bond GoldenEye 007 Trap remix by The Whittler.
Once when I was with Am in Tokyo, we had an interesting experience.
Outtakes.
Thank you, Miss Moneypenny. That's all.
Now, y'all, and Pat, y'all are ready to get started. There's no messing around with this crew. This is a serious crew. Serious faces. I can't see the faces anymore, but I'm assuming that they're very serious.
See, he's copying me again.